The courtroom buzzed with low murmurs and the occasional rustle of papers as the bailiff called the next case. Tasha Reynolds adjusted her blazer and stood quietly in the back row. She wasn't here to testify, or even to observe. She was here on a different kind of assignment, one that required silence, precision, and complete discretion. She blended in well, until the officer saw her. Officer Mitchell, posted near the side doors, noticed Tasha and immediately stiffened. He didn't recognize her. She wasn't part of the court staff, nor had she come in with any legal counsel. He narrowed his eyes and stepped closer, suspicion rising. "Excuse me, miss," he said sharply. "I need you to step outside." Tasha calmly turned her head. "Is there an issue? You're not supposed to be in here." "Let's go," Mitchell ordered, his tone already aggressive. "I'm not interfering with anything." "I'm exactly where I need to be," she replied, keeping her voice low and composed. Mitchell wasn't having it. Without waiting for a response, he reached for her arm. Big mistake. The moment Officer Mitchell's hand clamped around Tasha's arm, she stepped back, not aggressively, but firmly, and locked eyes with him. "I'm going to need you to remove your hand," she said calmly but with unmistakable authority. Mitchell scoffed. "You don't get to give orders in this building. Outside, now." Several heads in the courtroom turned toward the commotion, their whispers rising. Tasha didn't move. Instead, she slowly reached into her blazer pocket. Mitchell's hand twitched toward his holster. "Don't," she warned, her voice suddenly sharp as steel. "You're escalating something you don't understand." In one smooth motion, she pulled out a leather badge wallet and flipped it open. The gold glint of the FBI shield caught the light. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Mitchell froze. His mouth opened slightly, and for a split second, it looked like the color drained from his face. He looked around, as if hoping someone would back him up. No one did. "I'm Special Agent Tasha Reynolds," she said coolly. "And unless you'd like to explain to your captain why you just laid hands on a federal agent, in the middle of an operation, I suggest you take a step back." Mitchell slowly released her arm. "Ma'am. I didn't know." "You didn't ask," she replied coldly. The judge, having noticed the disruption, tapped her gavel. "Is there a problem in the back?" Tasha didn't even look away from Mitchell. "No, Your Honor. Situation is under control." The judge raised an eyebrow but nodded, returning her attention to the case in front of her. Meanwhile, whispers and stares now zeroed in on Tasha like a spotlight. Mitchell stepped back, trying to recover what little dignity he had left. "Look, I'm just doing my job. We've had issues with unauthorized people," Tasha cut him off. "Then maybe get better at identifying threats. Because today, that wasn't it." Mitchell looked like he wanted to crawl under the floor. With the badge still visible in her hand, Tasha stepped forward and leaned in slightly. "You just jeopardized an active investigation. If you'd paid attention, you'd have seen the U.S. Marshal over there already nodding at me. I had clearance to be here. You didn't even bother to ask." From across the room, a man in a suit nodded slowly in confirmation. The U.S. Marshal had been watching the entire interaction in silence, until now. He stood and walked toward them. "Officer Mitchell," the Marshal said quietly. "We're going to need a word outside." Mitchell glanced from Tasha to the Marshal and knew his day had just gone downhill fast. Tasha turned back toward the front, smoothing her blazer, composed as ever. Mission still on. As Officer Mitchell followed the U.S. Marshal out of the courtroom, his shoulders visibly slumped, Tasha took a slow breath and returned to her position near the back wall. She scanned the room, her trained eyes catching subtle movements and gestures the average person would miss. This wasn't just about courtroom surveillance. She was tracking someone. A key figure in a federal case, someone who had slipped through the cracks before. Today, she was here to make sure that didn't happen again. Her earpiece crackled faintly. A low voice came through, "Target in position." We're green. Tasha pressed her thumb discreetly against a button on her wristband. Mike, copy that. Visual confirmed. Stand by. Across the courtroom, a man in a gray suit sat rigidly at the defendant's table. He looked calm, almost bored, but Tasha knew better. His alias matched a trail of shell corporations and digital fingerprints tied to a massive financial crime network. And this time, he wasn't walking out. But as the defense attorney began to speak, the man glanced toward the gallery, and locked eyes with her. He froze. He recognized her. The game had just changed. The man's calm demeanor cracked for just a second. His eyes flickered with recognition, and panic. He quickly leaned toward his attorney and whispered something, too soft for anyone else to hear. But Tasha didn't need to hear it. She could read it in his body language. He was planning something. Her hand drifted back to her blazer, hovering near the holster tucked discreetly beneath the fabric. Not to draw, just a signal to the team watching through the courtroom's hidden cameras. In her earpiece, another voice cut in. He just sent a message, encrypted, short burst. Likely a panic signal. Interception. Tasha murmured. Intercepted and quarantined. But he knows he's exposed. The judge continued, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension now vibrating through the room. Tasha shifted her stance subtly. Confirm team in place at exits. All doors covered. If he bolts, he's not going far. She met the man's gaze again and gave the faintest tilt of her head, almost like a warning. That's when he made his move. In a blur, he shoved his chair back, knocking over his own attorney, and sprinted toward the side door. Gasps erupted. The judge yelled, "Order!" But Tasha was already in motion. Tasha was faster than anyone expected. Before the man even reached the courtroom door, she was on him, cutting across the aisle like a blade through paper. One sharp pivot, one practiced move, and she blocked his path completely. He threw a punch in desperation. Wrong move. Tasha sidestepped effortlessly, grabbed his wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the wooden paneling with controlled force. His face hit the wall with a dull thud, and within seconds, he was on the ground, arms pinned behind his back. Federal agent, she barked. Suspect is in custody. 2 agents from her team were already pushing through the courtroom doors, weapons drawn but pointed low. The rest of the room was frozen, attorneys, jurors, even the judge, watching with wide eyes as the scene unfolded like something out of a movie. The man groaned. "You've got nothing on me," Tasha leaned down. "You just resisted arrest during a federal operation, in front of a judge and a full courtroom. Trust me. We've got plenty." Mitchell, the same officer who tried to remove her just minutes ago, had returned with the marshal. His mouth hung open, stunned by the shift in power and reality. The marshal turned to him and muttered, "Still think she didn't belong here?" Mitchell said nothing. The agents lifted the suspect off the floor and began reading him his rights. Tasha stood tall, straightening her blazer, as the adrenaline slowly ebbed from her veins. She shot a glance at the judge, who was now staring at her with a mix of awe and disbelief. "Would the court like a formal explanation, Your Honor?" Tasha asked. The judge, still gripping her gavel, nodded. "Please do." Tasha stepped forward, badge in one hand. "Special Agent Tasha Reynolds, FBI. I've been running a covert surveillance operation tied to an interstate financial crime ring. The defendant, real name Devin Marks, is the suspected architect of a multi-million-dollar fraud network spanning 5 states. Until today, we lacked direct confirmation of his identity. That changed in this courtroom." She paused, letting the weight of her words land. "The moment he made eye contact, I had confirmation. His attempt to flee only sealed it." The courtroom was silent. The judge slowly leaned back. "Well, Agent Reynolds. I suppose I owe you an apology, and maybe the department owes you a medal." A few people chuckled nervously. Tasha gave a tight smile. Just doing my job. She turned toward the gallery, where Mitchell still lingered, looking like he wanted to disappear. She walked past him without a word, just a glance that said everything. Outside the courtroom, the hallway buzzed with reporters who had somehow gotten wind of the chaos. Cameras were already rolling, microphones outstretched toward anyone in uniform. Tasha didn't flinch. She walked calmly beside her team as Devon Marks was escorted out in cuffs, his designer suit wrinkled and his arrogance fully deflated. He kept his head down now, the reality of his downfall finally sinking in. "Agent Reynolds," one reporter called out. "Is it true the suspect tried to escape during trial?" Another shouted, "Is this related to the interstate wire fraud investigation?" Tasha didn't stop walking. But she did glance toward the cameras and say just loud enough, "No comment." "The investigation is ongoing." Inside, Officer Mitchell watched through the glass doors. The same woman he tried to drag out of the courtroom was now being surrounded by agents, media, and federal handlers, while he was left standing on the sidelines. The U.S. Marshal stepped up next to him. "Let that be a lesson," he said dryly. Mitchell didn't respond. The Marshal continued. "Not everyone in plain clothes is out of place. Some are 10 steps ahead of you." Mitchell just nodded, silently absorbing the humiliation. Meanwhile, Tasha disappeared down the hallway with her team, her presence commanding, her job done, until the next operation called her name. Back at the field office, the mood was completely different. Applause echoed through the hallway as Tasha entered the bullpen. Agents clapped her on the back, some smiling, others just nodding in respect. Word had traveled fast, about the takedown, the courtroom scene, and the fact that she'd managed to pull off the arrest without compromising the larger investigation. Her supervisor, Special Agent Marcus Hale, stepped out of his office with a rare smirk. "You just made a lot of people in D.C. very happy." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "That usually means I'm about to get more paperwork." "Probably," Hale chuckled. "But it also means you closed the loop on something we've been chasing for 2 years. That courtroom scene. Bold. Risky. But clean. Cleaner than the local cop who almost blew the whole thing," she muttered. Hale nodded. "We'll have a conversation with the department. But the important thing is, you trusted your instincts. And you kept it professional." Tasha gave a small shrug. "I wasn't there to make friends." "No," Hale said, his expression proud. "You were there to make history." Her phone buzzed. "New assignment pending. Priority, high." Tasha locked the screen and slipped the phone back into her pocket. No rest for the sharp. Later that evening, Tasha sat alone at a quiet cafe just outside the city, nursing a cup of black coffee. The adrenaline had long worn off, but the weight of the day still clung to her like a second skin. Across the table sat a slim man in plain clothes, another agent from a separate task force. "You handled that flawlessly," he said, stirring his tea. "We've seen these ops fall apart for way less." Tasha didn't smile. "They always forget the courtroom is just another battlefield. Everyone thinks once you're inside, the drama ends. But sometimes, that's where the real story starts." He leaned in. "Mitchell won't live this down anytime soon." "He shouldn't," she replied, her tone neutral. "Maybe next time he thinks before acting on impulse." The agent nodded. "So, what's next for you?" Tasha took a sip of her coffee, her eyes scanning the street outside without really seeing it. Then she looked back. "Whatever the bureau sends my way." She stood, adjusted her blazer, and placed a few bills on the table. The agent watched as she walked off into the night, confident, composed, unstoppable. She didn't need recognition. She didn't need thanks. She had the badge. And that was enough. The next morning, headlines exploded across local news outlets and social media. FBI agent silently takes down suspect in courthouse drama, courtroom chaos ends in stunning arrest by undercover Fed, officer mistakes FBI agent for trespasser, gets put in his place. Tasha scrolled past the stories on her phone with mild disinterest as she walked through the FBI field office's security checkpoint. Her face was never mentioned, her name left out. Just the way she preferred it. But not everyone stayed silent. That afternoon, the local police department held a quiet press conference. Officer Mitchell stood in the background as his superior addressed reporters, acknowledging a regrettable misunderstanding and stating that new protocols for interagency awareness would be implemented. Behind closed doors, Mitchell had already been pulled from courthouse duty indefinitely. Tasha watched the press conference from a secure room upstairs, arms crossed. Agent Hale walked in behind her. "Looks like they're doing damage control." "They should be," she said, not looking away from the screen. "But they need more than protocols. They need respect." Hale nodded. "We'll make sure this doesn't happen again. You handled it like a pro." She finally turned, letting the TV fade into the background. "Good. Because next time, I won't just flash a badge." Later that week, Tasha found herself in a quiet briefing room with a small group of federal agents. No cameras. No applause. Just the low hum of a projector and the clack of case files being handed around. The operation she had just closed was already in the rearview. A new case was beginning. Bigger stakes. Deeper cover. As her name was called to lead the next task force, Tasha stood and gave a nod. No ceremony. No ego. Just the mission. That was who she was, silent thunder in a world full of noise. Meanwhile, somewhere in a low-security detention center, Devin Marks sat alone, staring at the wall. The courtroom footage had gone viral. He was now not only a failed fraud kingpin, but the guy who got body-snatched by a woman he tried to dismiss in front of a packed courtroom. He'd underestimated her. So had Officer Mitchell. So had nearly everyone else. And now, none of them would ever forget her. Not because she made noise. But because she didn't have to. She had the training. The instinct. And the badge that stopped everything cold.